Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06 now, and we're all fired up and ready to take you to 9 o'clock, where we'll hand it off to Chris Plant for the Chris Plant Show. Coming up.
Right.
Yeah, they're calling it the Chris Plant Show these days, Patrice.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
That's news to me.
A branding thing. Coming up in 30 minutes, BYRON YORK of the Washington Examiner will dabble into presidential politics and the efforts to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. That's coming up. In the meantime, we're awaiting Representative Andy Harris, who, the Republican leadership went down to the border.
The southern border, yes.
And they investigated what was going on the southern border with the crossings and all that jazz. And I'm just curious, Patrice, because you're a good political observer. Republicans are willing, as Speaker Johnson said yesterday, they are willing, if necessary, to hold up the funding of the federal government if the Biden administration and the Democrats don't acquiesce on basic border provisions. And this has nothing to do with money. The Border Patrol is not asking for more money. Biden says, I need more money. No, he wants more money to just process people faster.
Yeah.
The Republicans are saying, no, this isn't about money. We've already done the research. We've actually done the due diligence to talk to the people on the border and in Homeland Security. They're not asking us for more money. They're asking for rules of engagement where they can do the job they signed up to do, which is protect the border.
Not to be babysitters or paper pushers.
So how does this play out? Because I think that I think the images that we see at the border, and I think that most Americans look at it and see the disaster that it is. Frankly, I think that this is a strong hand for the Republicans to play. I could be wrong because I know how the media spins this, and the government shut down and checks aren't being cut and everything's grinding to a halt. But again, when you pivot it on the border instead of just some amorphous, well, we've got to stop deficit spending, the American people don't get that. This they get.
Yeah, I think this was a really smart bargaining chip that they're using, and it's fine to use it. Let's not forget, number one, that the House passed H.R. 2, which is actually border security measures. Right. It provides money for additional border agents, which is what President Biden wants. It also puts more restrictions on who can seek asylum and what qualifies for asylum.
That's right.
It tightens the asylum process, puts money for the border wall.
Desperately needed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because people know.
And Democrats know it. They they keep saying, whenever they say we have to fix our broken immigration system, this will fix it.
This will fix it because you're ensuring that people are not just lying and pretending to be asylees and actually protect this asylum system for those who are truly fleeing violence and fleeing political violence. Right.
Fleeing political persecution, religious persecution.
Yes.
There are certain categories that are legitimate means and grounds for asking for asylum. Exactly. Democrats get that. They just don't want to give it without getting amnesty. Exactly. They want to trade off.
And we shouldn't be giving amnesty because, again, that is another big magnet to draw people in another 10 years from now.
Yes.
So Republicans have actually already done the job of passing border security and passing border legislation. The Senate has not taken it up and will not take it up. And let's not forget who is in charge over in the Senate right now. So going down to the border, you're hearing out there that this is being positioned as a political stunt. It's not a political stunt, but it is drawing attention to how many people are coming in, over 300,000 a month. I mean, Jay John, Obama's Homeland Security Secretary at the time, said if it was, a 10,000, that would be a bad day for him.
That would be a crisis, yeah.
That would be a crisis.
Jay Johnson said that.
So imagine how much of a crisis this really is.
Yep.
We've seen some headlines saying that some pictures on different news outlets don't seem to show the same flow of migrants because the Biden administration, they're tricky. They move people, they move people over here so that the pictures can be taken over there. No, the American people are seeing the ridiculous number of illegal immigrants coming into our country, not being turned away to seek asylum from Mexico or the nearest country of their origin. They're also seeing the types of people coming. You talked about it earlier. Single, working age and fighting age men coming into this country, not just families looking for a better life. Number two, we're also understanding that there are drug dealers, there are gang members, people with violent records who are able to come in, and people who are on the terror watch list coming in. You're seeing people coming from other countries, other continents coming in because they absolutely see that this is a bypass around the traditional application process to come into this country. So I appreciate the 60 members who went down there. I get what they're trying to do. Now this gives them a little bit of cover for when next week and in the next 3 weeks these funding bills come up and there is a contentious fight over them.
Do they win the political fight though?
Yes, I think they will.
They're willing to. I tend to think that they will too. There's another factor here as to why I think they will. It's an election year. And there are plenty of Democrats in the Senate. Democrats, even Democrats in the House, although it is a little more polarized at this point, but Joe Biden himself, who recognize that if they're willing, if the messaging is done properly and Republicans can make the case that Joe Biden would rather have this chaos at the border with millions of people crossing illegally without doing anything about it, he would rather have that than have the government functioning with a funded budget, because all he's got to do is enforce the border and then he gets his funding.
Yeah.
But he refuses to do it. I don't think that looks good for Joe Biden trying to get reelection, and he will be in an untenable position.
That's right.
To say that he's defending his actions at the border rather than actually doing something about it and having the potential so-called government shutdown.
And the actions at the border are not something that that's highly moral that people will say, oh yeah, that's absolutely great thing to do. You're standing up for the little people. No, you're standing up for a flood of illegal immigrants coming into our country, and you don't know where they're going. You don't know how to find them, and you don't know what is going to happen next. And by the way, we're now seeing these people turning up in our cities, in our towns, and the drain on the public resources, on our schools, displacing kids from playing soccer and basketball in their high schools, taking away critical needed public resources in struggling communities and diverting it so that minorities or so that illegal immigrants can stay in the lap of luxury in a very nice hotel and get the meals of choice that they want. Like this is actually really ripe.
You can tell the administration is worried about the politics of this because Alejandro Mayorkas showed up on Fox News. They hate Fox News. They won't go on Fox News unless they think they can in a manipulative way make themselves look good to voters that actually watch Fox News that they need if they're going to win re-election. That's why it's an election year that he shows up.
Obviously, President Biden has just completed his third year in office. How many illegal immigrants has DHS released into the country from the border in that time?
Brett, let me correct a misunderstanding. When somebody enters the country, we place them in immigration enforcement proceedings pursuant to the immigration law. And if their claim for relief, their claim to remain in the United States succeeds, then by law they are able to stay here. And if it doesn't succeed,
have a number, right?
We remove them.
Yeah, he presses him for a number. Finally, he concedes that it's well over 1 million a year so far. It is well over that. But understand what he just said there. When they seek relief, what they're doing is they're claiming asylum. Because if you come to even under Joe Biden, if you cross the border illegally, you're met by a Border Patrol agent, and you say to the Border Patrol agent, listen, I'm poor. I don't have jobs in my country. You've got jobs here. I'm here to get a better life. You're not in. That's not asylum.
No, it's not.
That is not a free ticket to come into the country. So those people either lie or they come in where they're not met with the Border Patrol agent. That's the gotaways. That's right.
And by the way, on gotaways are the ones that the government knows about. Those are still people that truly got away, and the government doesn't even know who they are.
That's right. And God knows how many millions of those.
Exactly.
If you go to one of those Border Patrol agents and say, I'm seeking asylum, I'm seeking political asylum because of oppression in my home country, or I'm seeking asylum because of my religious beliefs and I'm being oppressed in my home country, that's when you get adjudicated. That's when you get your ticket to a hearing, which will be, 6-7 years from now?
2031 we're hearing.
If you show up. Yeah. And that right now, based on the asylum laws in this country, that allows you to stay here until you are adjudicated. All right? That's what he just referred to, which, by the way, gets buttoned up in H.R. 2.
Yes, it does.
House Republicans have repaired that loophole. Democrats don't want it. Now, you heard him just say what he said about, adjudicating people if for relief, right? Now listen to this response from Mayorkas just about a minute later.
This is something that is not specific to the United States' southern border. This is something that we are seeing throughout the hemisphere and throughout the world. We have increase in authoritarian regimes. We have more extreme weather events that are driving people from their homes.
Those two things, by the way, are legitimate cause for asylum if a court eventually says, okay, yes, because of this hurricane, because of this dictator. But then listen to this.
We have poverty, and America is proving to be prosperous with more than 8 million jobs that need to be filled.
That's the Secretary of Homeland Security admitting that part of the reason people are coming here have nothing to do with legitimate asylum claims. They're coming here for jobs and for a better economic future. And if he, as Secretary of Homeland Security, knows that for a fact, what the hell is he doing about it?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not a thing.
That's right.
If I were a swearing, cursing woman, I would put a curse right there.
Well, I'm glad you're not, because we're still on the radio.
That's right.
It's 8:17. Let's get to Jamie Whitten. He's in the freaking
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
WMAL. Making sense of the border. Because laws either matter or they don't. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Congressman Andy Harris joins us now. He left the comfy confines of the Chesapeake Bay to visit the Rio Grande, and I'd love for you to share with us what you saw firsthand and also how this showdown is going to develop, because your speaker, Speaker Johnson, I think rightly, has basically said this government does not get funded until we see action on H.R. 2 on border security. So, Congressman Harris, how's this going to play out?
Well, Larry, good to be with you this morning. Good to be back from the border. I got to tell you, it's completely out of control down there. It's functionally a non-existent border right now, and the speaker realizes that. The speaker has made it clear that it's not going to be business as usual in Washington. This administration's lawlessness with regards to the border, Secretary Mayorkas' lawlessness with regard to the border cannot continue. And there are a couple of issues that we could tie it to. We could tie it to the government funding, which, of course, for the agencies would shut down on the 19th, or we could, hold it out for tie the Ukraine funding to it. I think most likely we're going to do it with the funding bills. The fact of the matter is, that's leverage we have, and this administration doesn't understand anything but leverage.
Well, and it's important to use that leverage, Congressman. Can you give us a couple of details? Anything surprising that you saw down at the border? And I know some folks probably saw some shell games where some of these illegal migrants were moved for one side so that pictures could be taken, where it seemed like there wasn't a big flow of people in. What did you see? Give us some details and some color, please.
Well, that's absolutely true. What they did was there are 9 sectors on the southern border. What they did is they moved them what they call lateral movement. So they moved them to the surrounding sectors, so there weren't that many people coming through at Del Rio that day. But that's where there were 6,000 people one day at the end of the year. And two of the most surprising things is when they have that kind of flood, that Del Rio, and it's a soft-sided facility. So we're not meant to process immigrants at these ports of entry. So they built these soft-sided tent cities, which can process 1,000 a day. When they exceed 1,000 a day, 2 things that are very serious happen. One is that they basically don't fully vet everybody. They just release them into the interior. The other is they pull all the agents from that sector, which is 240 miles long, into that facility, leaving 240 miles of border completely unguarded. And the cartels know this. So when they flood Del Rio, they know there are 200 miles of open border for them to transport fentanyl, for them to transport their sex slaves across the border. Yeah. They know it. They're in total control of the border. If it weren't for the Texas Department of Public Safety, that border would be truly wide open.
Speaking of Congressman Andy Harris, who's fresh from the Rio Grande, the Eagle Pass border crossing in Texas, and I suspect you spoke with members of the Border Patrol and officials down there whose job it is to protect the border. Did they ask you for more money? Is that what they're looking? Because the president suggests that he could, I'll fix the problem, just give me more money.
No, Larry, the only thing they'll do with more money is hire more Border Patrol agents to be social workers, because that's the frustration the Border Patrol has. These are sworn law enforcement officers, and what they're basically doing are processing paperwork. They're taking, at Eagle Pass in the Del Rio sector, over 1,000 people a day, and all they're doing is they're just filling out the papers so that they can hand them over to ICE or to the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, just to process them into the interior. And like you said on your last segment, for them to wait 6 or 7 years for a court appearance that they probably won't appear for anyway.
Yeah. And finally, you said in a posting at the X social media platform, you said the open border Democrats are violating the law and must be held accountable. Do you mean Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden, that they're violating the law? Which Democrats do you mean? And since you're in Congress and accountability is part of the responsibility and oversight in Congress, how would you like to see them held accountable?
Well, the first thing we have to do, and we're going to start it pretty soon, is the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas. He lied to Congress. He clearly just wants an open border. Again, look, you played his quotes in the last segment. He understands that this whole asylum thing is a charade, that what we're doing is, people, the predominant group now claiming asylum is from Mexico. Well, Mexico is supposed to be a democracy. It's supposed to be one of our allies. Like, how can you claim
asylum from Mexico? Yeah.
But if you cross the border, you say the magic words, Border Patrol has no choice but to hand you over to ICE, which will send you into the interior because they don't have the detention facilities that the law require. The other fascinating thing is, and very dangerous, is that if you cross the border, and let's say you are a young terrorist from a Mideast country, and you tell them you are John Doe and your date of birth is January 1st, 2000, and they can't disprove that, they will give you a certificate that says you are John Doe with a date of birth January 1st, 2000 with a government photo ID.
Wow.
Basically a government photo ID. And this was totally – and I asked point blank, I asked the Border Patrol agent, I painted that scenario, and he said, yeah, we have no choice. We have to do that.
So they can use that ID to go on an airplane. They can use that ID to do God knows what.
Driver's license, maybe. The fact of the matter is, what you're doing is you're creating a pathway to let terrorists into this country unchecked.
What committee will take up the impeachment that you just mentioned that's going to happen?
The Homeland Security Committee is going to do it. Mr. Green,
Chairman Green has already committed to that.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I think the first hearing is going to be next Wednesday. So stay tuned.
Looking forward to it.
There's going to be accountability.
Happy New Year, Congressman Andy
Thank
Harris.
you so much,
Appreciate you joining us.
Same to you.
It's 8:25 now. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus Media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:36 on O'Connor and Company. Sitting over there is Patrice Onwuka. She's a little bit country, that Patrice Onwuka, and I'm a little bit rock and roll.
There you go. You're a little bit black. I'm a little bit white. Is that how it goes?
No, that's not what I was. What? Why is everything race with you?
I'm just bringing it full circle to the way we began our today's show.
Joining us now is BYRON. We did a lot of DEI discussion earlier.
Yeah.
Let's move to politics now with BYRON York. He's the host of the BYRON York Show podcast. Hey, what do you podcast? York, stay in your lane, pal. And I don't need this competition.
Hey, there's room for more than one podcast.
I suppose so. He, of course, is the Washington Examiner. There's so much to get to. You've done a deep dive into the Trump legal team's appeal on the Colorado decision. What is their direction here in terms of how they're trying to fight against this creative interpretation of the 14th Amendment?
Well, actually, they're going in every direction, which is actually pretty fascinating. There's a lot of, given the fact that the Colorado Supreme Court has made this decision and the Secretary of State of Maine has made this decision, there's a bunch of different ways to go with this. And in their brief, they had to file a brief appealing this to the Supreme Court because the Colorado Supreme Court said today, today was the deadline for the Republican ballot in Colorado. And the Colorado Supreme Court said, well, unless Trump files an appeal with the Supreme Court, his name's going to be off the ballot. Mm-hmm. So obviously Trump filed a brief with the Supreme Court. And they're going at it in a number of ways. One, they're saying that the framers of the 14th Amendment did not intend for it to apply to the president. By the 14th Amendment, we mean Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the whole insurrection thing. Yeah. They're saying they didn't mean it to apply. There's this arcane argument about what an officer of the United States is. An officer of the United States is a phrase that's in the Constitution. And the question is the president one or is he not one? And you think, well, of course he's one. I mean, the presidency is the highest office in the land. He's an officer of the United States. Well, there's actually a real debate about that. Then there's a question of whether January 6th was an insurrection, which they don't agree with. I don't agree with either. And then there's the question of whether, if it was an insurrection, whether Trump, quote, engaged in insurrection by the things he did that day. So those are the things that the Colorado Supreme Court affirmed, that Trump was an officer of the United States, it was an insurrection, and Trump engaged in insurrection. So the Colorado Supreme Court has said yes to all of those things, and those are the things now before the Supreme Court.
Well, we're looking forward to what happens, how the Supreme Court comes down. But sticking with politics, I'd love to get your read on Nikki Haley. We played some clips from her, both from last night as well as some other clips.
Oh, wait, let's play this. This is my favorite, real fast.
Yeah. We have an opportunity to get this right. And I know we'll get it right. And I trust you. I trust every single one of you. You know how to do this. You know Iowa starts it. You know that you correct it. You know that you continue to go.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's pretty much demeaning some voters. She thinks she's going to get New Hampshire, and she's throwing Iowa under the bus. What do you make of that? And also, she still isn't able to get the what caused the Civil War question right either.
Yeah, I know she's still struggling with that one. The Iowa, her Iowa remark was really regarded as a big gaffe in Iowa because basically she's saying, those poor dumb Iowans, they always get it wrong, and you smart folks here in New Hampshire, you're going to get it right. You're going to correct what they do. And then she said her state of South Carolina is going to bring it home, like she's going to win South Carolina. So, one, it was kind of offensive to Iowa. Now, in her defense, I will say one thing: the winner of the Iowa caucuses has not gone on for a long time to win the Republican nomination, much less the presidency. In 2008, Mike Huckabee won the Iowa caucuses. He did not become the nominee. In 2012, Rick Santorum won the caucuses, and he did not become the nominee. In 2016, the year Trump was in, Ted Cruz won the Iowa caucuses. So Iowa has not had a great record of producing nominees. New Hampshire's is a bit better. Yeah. But the fact is, the first voting really kind of affects things and sets the tone. And I do think there is kind of a bit of a reaction effect that goes on in New Hampshire after Iowa chooses. And what you're seeing is Haley is now, she's got so much money now. She's got a lot of donations. Yeah. And she's buying television ads to attack DeSantis in Iowa, where she doesn't have a great chance. And then she's spending all of her time, as you just heard. She was in New Hampshire when she said what you just played. So she's spending a huge amount of time thinking she's got the big chance in New Hampshire.
BYRON YORK's our guest, Washington Examiner. And BYRON, over the last 12 months, Donald Trump has been inundated with over 90 charges, 4 different jurisdictions, including charges by a special prosecutor, Jack Smith, at the federal level for crimes that were originally put on the books for the Ku Klux Klan, as you know, for the insurrection case. Of course, they didn't charge him with insurrection. Plus the Espionage Act was employed over the documents case. I mean, really, like unbelievable. And through it all, and going through the primary, not participating in the debates, being attacked by all the other Republican nominees, he is currently leading Joe Biden by over 2 points in the Real Clear Politics average. After all of that, he is leading him nationally. Is it panic time for the Democrats right now?
Well, I think that they look at everything you just said, all these weights around Trump's ankles, and he's still ahead of Biden. They think, oh my God, what about our candidate, Joe Biden? Look, Biden has a number of unfixable problems with his candidacy. The biggest one, of course, is that he's 81, going to be 82 starting a second term, and majorities of Americans, including of his own party, think he's too old for a second term. That's not gonna be fixed. Yeah. And Democrats have just decided they have cast their lot with that. And clearly the American people disapprove of virtually everything Joe Biden has done, most especially his handling of the economy, but also of the border, of the crime, even of foreign affairs, and even in traditional Democratic strengths like healthcare and education. His job approval rating is much lower than a Democrat's should be. We've seen he's not doing well with young voters. He is not doing well with Hispanic voters. He's not doing well with black voters. Now, he's still winning, like with black voters, but not by the margins that previous Democrats have done. Look, they're kind of in panic mode, but it's kind of too late. They have cast their lot now, and they're with Joe Biden.
BYRON YORK, Washington Examiner. He's one of the best. We love having him part of the conversation, especially in an election year. Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, listen, Joe Biden's going to be 82, but can we agree it's an old 82?
Yeah.
It's like... Well, that's a wrap. Patrice, Onwuka, you have a great weekend.
You too, Larry.
I hope you don't get any snow, but if you do, I hope the boys take care of it.
I'll be sitting inside watching them.
That's how it goes.
That's what boys are for, among other things.
You deciding what a boy is and what a boy isn't, Chris Plant. How dare you?
How dare you, sir? Well, there might be a little dusting, but it's never too early to panic.
That's right. I've already abandoned my car.
Get to the grocery store, get your milk and paper towels and toilet paper, and before they're gone, because the shelves are already almost bare, thanks to Joe Biden
and the shoplifters,
and the looters, and especially that Safeway in Columbia Heights, because.